Smiles, everyone. Smiles. And prepare yourself for...
Show me the money!
Ladies and gentlemen, the radio broadcast experience designed to keep your wallet in top condition. It's Talkin' Money with Jeff Tarbell.
Talkin' money. Talkin' money.
More money, more money, more money.
And now entering the studio, your guru for fiscal fitness, Jeff Tarbell.
Jeff Tarbell is not in the house. It is Vince Mastracco, the longtime Golf Talk show host. So I'll just say, like I said, for 19 years, I'll greet as I greeted for 19 years. Good morning, swingers, but also good morning, money lovers as well. So I am guest hosting the show for Jeff and John. They're off today, and of course, I'd like to thank them at the top of the hour in case I forget my manners at the bottom of the hour. Jeff and I are good friends. But I always thank Jeff for giving me the opportunity to come back in here and be on the air here at KHTK Sports Sacramento, Sports 1140. I forget which way which is the title this week of it. So I'm joined in studio today by a couple of guests. One, my dear friend and longtime co-host, Brett Taylor, and we'll tell you why in a moment. Good morning, Brett.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's been all summer, really.
It has that.
So, and then our first guest this morning is from Sacramento Appraisal Group, and that is Jeff Hamrick, an appraiser. We're going to talk real estate appraisal today, so if you do want to send us anything on the text, on the KHTK text line, which is 441140, any questions, we will do our best to get them in. We've got a bunch of stuff for you. Jeff, good morning and welcome to the radio.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
It is good to have you here. And then I want to say hi to our producer in there behind the glass, and that is Chris. And Chris, before I launch into the show, 2 weeks ago, I took a baseball trip with my daughter, Abby, who is now a sports writer for Fox Sports West website, foxsportswest.com down in L.A. So here's what we did, Chris. We met in Albany, New York on Sunday. We went to Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame. Then we took a train from Albany down to New York City, and on Monday went to a Mets-Cubs game, day game, in Queens. Tuesday, Yankees-Astros, and looking at this Chris Carter thing in Sacramento Bee this morning, that particular game, Carter comes up for the Astros, strikes out 4 consecutive times, comes up late in the game, and jacks a 2 or 3 run homer to beat the Yankees. And so we gave him the prize for Dog of the Game and King of the Game. Then on Wednesday, Chris, we went to Boston, and we were there for 2 games, Boston Angels, Wednesday and Thursday, and Abby had a press credential for Thursday, so she left me 3 o'clock in the afternoon Thursday to go to work. But worked press room, on the field, and in the clubhouse. And Sosha got tossed from that game, so she had an extended visit after the post-game press conferences as to why Mike Sosha and Albert Pujols both got tossed. So then on Friday, we took a train from Boston to Philadelphia and watched Philadelphia Cardinals, and Adam Wainwright got lit up for the Cards that night. And then we finished up on Saturday with Giants, Washington Nationals. That was the Tim Lincecum meltdown game. So that was my trip, man.
So pretty boring overall.
That's a good trip.
But you always have your
like
Boston
every
cap on.
East Coast baseball team right there.
I would have done Baltimore, except that they were traveling. They weren't back until like the following Tuesday. So
the question is, who took whom? Sounds like Abby did some work while you were on.
Yeah, Abby did do some work, so she made some money while she was there. I just spent money. But, Boston was awesome, except I will say they had the weakest ballpark food. Basically, every vendor, except outside of the stadium, every inside vendor only had hot dogs or sausage and peppers, the Italian thing back there, sausage and peppers. So, but... you could feed me anything. It just let me sit at Fenway Park.
Yes.
So
good trip.
It was fun. All right, we got to get over to business right now. Jeff, appraisals are always an issue in a real estate transaction, a residential real estate transaction. So let's start with appraiser's perspective on what kind of market we have right now.
Well, right now, I'd say it's moving into a seller's market. I'm sorry, a buyer's market.
A buyer's market. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, houses are still moving if they're priced right, and that's a pertinent thing.
That's really pertinent.
Inventory's up, and we're beginning to, well, depending on where you are, there's still some places where the market's going up a little bit. But overall, in fact, we did a blog post a couple of weeks ago on the placer market over the last year, and I think overall we're up maybe 2%. So basically flat.
Yep. That's pretty flat. And what I'm finding is sellers, they read all the stuff that it was going up a year ago, and they think it's still going up, and you give them a pill to swallow, and they don't want to swallow the pill. So I think part of the reason inventory is going up is simply because we have houses that are sitting because they've been premium priced, and then new listings come in on top of it. So now we're really turning it into a buyer's market.
Yeah, correct.
So, all right. But let's go the other way, because just a year ago, and it'll come back again, we have somebody that puts in fact, I just had one recently. I had one in July. I got 6 offers. And the seller will come along and say, okay, I got multiple offers on my house. Everybody bid it up, $10,000, $20,000, but it didn't appraise, and it's on an FHA loan. Why didn't it appraise? People want my house.
Yeah, people want to know that. Well, I think that one of the reasons that that we've seen is that when a house is priced, often it's priced at what the payments are going to be, and with rates as low as they are, even if they're going up, they're still extremely low. People can afford the payments, but that doesn't mean the collateral is worth that much. And so it's horrible when you go into a situation like that and appraise the house, and the bank wants to know what the collateral's worth if they have to liquidate the house.
That's their security.
Right. Yeah. So a whole different angle. And if we're working for a bank, if we're doing a lending appraisal, then we're the eyes and ears of the bank, and they want to know, hey, bottom line, what is this actually worth? Not what it's worth to a buyer or a seller.
Interesting. Okay.
Along those lines, though, the follow-up would be, what can a seller do to increase the value of his home? If you're going into selling, is there something that's relatively inexpensive? Is it a fresh coat of paint? Is it flooring? What can sellers do reasonably efficiently that increases the value of the home?
Yeah, good question. Well, hopefully they've done periodic maintenance all along.
Right.
But
we get a lot of deferred maintenance.
yes. But I would say it does wonders just to, and you'd be surprised, have a clean yard. Doesn't have to be a $10,000 landscape job at the last minute, but the curb appeal is huge. And things that people could do to increase the value of their house if they have to, even just doing their bathrooms. I mean, you can go to Home Depot and get relatively inexpensive new vanities. You can do flooring. Make it look newer, because people are looking for newer type homes. They want an upgraded kitchen. They want, and if you can't do that, that can be expensive. But you can even upgrade a kitchen for relatively inexpensive.
Right.
Those are some things that those will sell quicker than something that hasn't been upgraded.
Right.
Okay, what about the one we get as agents get is, I know we need new carpet, but if we pick it, somebody won't want it. So can we just put carpet samples there and give a carpet allowance?
Well, as you know, home buying is mostly emotional, and people are going to walk in
good point.
And their first impression is that. You can only make one first impression. So my advice would be to choose something neutral.
Right.
Don't put pink carpet in. But if they walk in and see a carpet that is past its economic life, it's worn, it needs stretching, it may be soiled, that's in their mind. And you can even tell them, we're going to give you a carpeting allowance, but then they go look at the next open house and it just looks pristine. Well, the decision's been made.
Right.
This is the stuff that we as agents often say, but I think it's great coming from an appraiser. So again, folks, we're talking with Jeff Hamrick from Sacramento Appraisal Group. You do have a website, sacramentoappraisalgroup.net.
Yes.
And you can go on there if you are somewhere where you can pull up a computer screen, and it may give you some questions that you want to ask, Jeff, because you do a whole bunch of things. We'll get into all the reasons for an appraisal a bit. So, all right. So let's go the other side. We said we had multiple offers on a house, but it didn't appraise. Now let's go here. So I listed this question out. My agent wants to list my house. I've just been through this one recently for $40,000 less than Zillow. Why such a discrepancy?
Well, first you have to deal with Zillow. Zillow is basically a automated valuation model, which means that it just takes numbers. Doesn't consider location, doesn't consider condition. In a tract where there's 4 models and it's a relatively new and there's a lot of activity, Zillow might be very accurate, but that's few and far between. So I would say that using Zillow as a benchmark for value, it's caused grief in many cases. That's not what it should be used for. Now they have a lot of money, and it's the Zestimate is everyone looks at it. Every time I do an appraisal, they tell me what Zillow says.
Yep.
But Zillow can overvalue and it can undervalue. So I would just say one of the main reasons is I wouldn't look at Zillow for value.
Okay, but everybody is looking at it.
Yes,
all right, so I'll just tell you my little game. Here's what I do when I get requests to be interviewed as a possible listing agent. I like to do my market analysis. I do the whole thing complete. And I have a range because we're not really supposed to say list your house for $199. We're supposed to say, well, it's $175 to $210. Where would you like to put it?
Right.
But anyway, I like to do the whole analysis. Then I like to go check Zillow, just
see
to
where you are.
Where they are.
Yeah.
But and I've had some wild discrepancies. So as I had one. I've got one this year that Zillow was I think $65,000 higher than what I wanted to list it for. So
right.
And a seller just says you're wrong. They stuck with me as an agent, but there's been price drops on that particular. Parcel, just because I knew you just know, and condition was one of the factors. But it's just something people out there they want to know, and it's a good guideline. But God, it's just not the
and
rule.
Location too. It's going to take a radius, and you may be going from one neighborhood to another where the price there's a 30% price variation, and but Zillow doesn't know that.
Yeah.
It just takes it's pure math. And
you can only look at certain things, I'm assuming. That's coming from a golf pro who doesn't know the business. But it has to only look at certain things. So what does an appraiser look at in addition to those things that Zillow can assess and base its appraisal off of? How much subjectivity can a real live person bring to the table that makes the difference?
Oh, well, quite a bit. As an appraiser, we're objective. We use we use math, we use market data because we have to be able to prove what it is we're saying. But even saying that, one appraiser is going to be different than the next, and in our industry, about a 10% variance is considered good.
Right.
But we'll look at the condition of the house. We'll look at the amenities. We'll look at all the with the short-lived items. We'll look at the roof. We'll look at everything, and then we'll try to find the most similar, proximate, recent sales, which is a good guideline. If someone wants to figure out what their house is worth, they have access to any sort of data. They want to look at recent, similar, and proximate. So in the same neighborhood if possible.
Right.
Recent, similar, proximate. So, okay, let's maybe start to define those a little bit. Recent, obviously, within the last 90 days. If you can find comps with solds, pendings, and actives.
Yeah, and that's a lender requirement. With the market flattening out, we can go a little bit farther back.
Okay, so you can go back 120, et cetera, wherever you got to go. Similar, I've got a 1,600 square foot house, but all the houses in my neighborhood are 2,100 square foot or larger. So are they similar because they're in the neighborhood, or do you go out a couple miles away from my house and find a 1,600 square foot house?
Well, that's a good question. Fannie and Freddie. So if this is going to be a loan that's going to be FHA.
Yeah.
So it's going to go on the secondary market. So they have guidelines, and one of the guidelines is for gross living area or square footage. You can use comparable sales that are 20% plus or minus. Now, those are guidelines.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But those are the things we're looking for. So if you have a 1,600 square foot house and everything else that's sold is in the 2,000s, then if you can't find anything else, because sometimes going 2 miles out
changes the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sure. Exactly. Custom homes, say you're in Granite Bay and you have a large, 7,500 square foot house. In that situation, you can look in all of Granite Bay because there's not a whole lot of those houses selling.
Yeah.
And somebody looking for that house is probably going to look all over. They're not. But most of the time, we want to have the same neighborhood, or at least a competing neighborhood.
Ooh, I like that thought, a competing neighborhood to it then. So, and plus or minus 20. So if we got a 1,600 square foot house, 20% would be another 320 feet. So we're getting up to $2,000 or to 2,000 square feet. So we can maybe then take it that way. All right, now, then let's move to proximal. So I've got a house in one, a location, but 3 blocks over, it's a new zip code, and 4 blocks another way, it crosses the freeway.
Right.
And there's really only 2 comps in my immediate area. So now, but yet I have, I don't know, maybe my lot size is different, and I have some other questions on that coming down. But
sure.
But what's more important than the square footage of the house, gross living area, or proximity?
Yes and yes. A lot of times when we come to our final conclusion, it's called the reconciliation. We kind of explain all of our data, and we say, hey, in the final value analysis, we're going to put all our weight on, let's say, sale 1. And if you've looked at an appraisal, you have your comparable sales, and they're usually aligned next to each other. So if I have 2 good sales, that's fine. I can put most of my weight on those. And if I have to pull another sale from that's not as relevant, then I'm just not going to put weight on it.
Okay. So a weight meaning a weighted value of some
exactly.
sort.
I'm not going to pay much attention to it. I can say this one was dissimilar, and so minimal weight was given to it, and that's appraisal talk. It's going to be there in the report.
Yep. Okay. All right. So then let's tag that one. Actually, I see you looking, Brett. You got a question for him? Right? Okay.
For me? Oh, goodness gracious.
Okay. All right. I've
good
got
stuff.
I've got another one then, sort of tagging to that. And once again, folks, we're talking with Jeff Hamrick from Sacramento Appraisal Group. You can go to his website at sacramentoappraisalgroup.net, or you can text us if you've got a question here, 441140 right now. Text line is open. I think, are you okay with some phone calls? Should I say?
Absolutely.
800-920-1140. Remembering that from 19 years of saying it. So, all right, my tag-along question then. I have the largest lot in the neighborhood, but the smallest house. What's most important?
Well, another good question. I guess it would depend on what the purpose is. If you're in a rural area, which I'm not, I'm just using it as a hypothetical, and you're raising horses, then maybe the lot. I did an appraisal several weeks ago, and we were talking 5-acre lots. The houses were somewhat irrelevant. I mean, they weren't irrelevant, but they were less of an issue because people wanted to.
Okay, let's move it into
in a
an
neighborhood.
Urban, in a neighborhood, urban area.
In a neighborhood, people want gross living area. They want square footage. They want bed and bath count, and that seems to be more important to most buyers.
Okay.
So, if the most of the lots, you might have a cul-de-sac lot, or you might have a lot that's going to be bigger. But in most subdivisions, it's not going to be bigger by that much. So, my opinion would be that the house, would be the bigger factor.
Okay, and just following up on that, I'll get the thing where I'll be, I don't know, let's just, we're close to Carmichael here. We'll pick 2 Carmichael houses because there's a lot of Carmichael houses from the days gone by
Yes.
that were like 1,000 square feet, 1,100 square feet, but they're on a half acre.
Yes.
And so let's go similar size houses. One's on a half acre.
Talking money.
Well, alrighty then. We're back to Talkin' Money with Jeff Tarbell.
Not quite with Jeff Tarbell, with Vince Mastracco and Brett Taylor, formerly, just in case you recognize the voices, for many, many years we hosted the Golf Talk radio show right here on this air. And Jeff being a dear friend over the years, and I am a real estate agent with Lion Real Estate. I guess I should say that. I'm plugging our guest Jeff Hamrick's website at sacramentoappraisalgroup.net, and forget to plug myself. But yes, if folks, if you are thinking of buying, selling, listing a property, you can always call me, and it's a real easy phone number, 916-220-PUTT. And we are going to talk putting in just a few minutes as we transition over to Peter Brown with Aimpoint Express. So those of you that do some of your real estate or other business on the golf course can certainly benefit from listening to Peter. Aimpoint Express is, Brett, I think it's a great enhancement to the program. So we'll move there in a minute. I want to put out quiz questions first because I forgot to in the first segment. A little out of practice. Jeff wants me to give away a couple of pairs of tickets to Pablo Cruz at Hellweg Winery next week. So here we go. We're going to take these off the air, and Chris will just let us know. First quiz question. Name this Chinese internet company that is launching a U.S. IPO and is expected to launch the largest IPO ever, which is projected to be valued, the company will be valued at around $163 billion after the IPO. And, of course, they're going to list on the New York Stock Exchange. So what is the name of this company? You tell us that, and you can win a pair of tickets to go see Pablo Cruz next weekend at Hellweg Winery. The second quiz question. The ticker symbol is BRK, and then it's followed by a suffix. How much did the A shares close at in yesterday's trading? So tell us that. You can dial 800-920-1140, 339-1140 if you are in the 916 area code. That's how you'll need to get to Chris, because the text line... Chris, can they do it on the text line as well if they want? Okay, you don't want to do it on the text line because you got to punch in your address and all that stuff. So... So we're going to save the text line for any questions for us. 441140 is the text. And I do have one we'll get to in a second. First, when we went to break, we said, when should agents, if they're valuing a property, Jeff, begin to pay more attention, or at least some stronger attention, to actives on the market rather than solds? So we do have an answer to the first question, the first quiz question, the Chinese internet company, and that is Alibaba. And it could end up being valued as high as $200 billion on the U.S. stock market. Amazing. It's mind-boggling.
So the question, when should agents pay more attention to actives or pendings? Well, either in an appreciating or declining market. And I think that...
so two markets, basically, then.
Two markets, yeah. When you see the listing prices going up or down, that means that they're being listed too low or too high.
Yep.
And I would actually pay... That's a good thing to look at to see what's being listed too high or too low. In this case, it would probably be too high. But I also
now in this market.
Yes, and we're seeing that a lot. But I'd also look at the list to sell ratio, which, what if something's being listed for, let's just say $100,000 and it's being sold for $90,000, then you can figure that out. You can look at the average listings and say, well, you can get a pretty good idea of what it's going to sell for. Again, it's some houses are listed right, some aren't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would definitely pay attention to right now. I would look at the listings, what's being listed right now. And
okay, let me move over. We'll take the text question that came in, and then we're going to jump over to Peter, and we're going to start talking a little bit about. We're going to make you a better putter the next time you play golf. Okay, and I still got some questions we can jump in here. This says, "Hey guys, I just bought a home in Citrus Heights, 2,200 square feet, half acre. I paid $348,000. Appraisal came in at $360,000. Now I went to FHA with mortgage insurance. How long before I have enough equity to refinance out of my mortgage insurance into a conventional loan? Thanks, Tim from Citrus Heights." First, I got to answer part of this first. You may not be able to get rid of that mortgage insurance on the FHA. Depends on the FHA loan because they changed that about a year and a half ago. So
yeah,
in
fact, currently you're stuck with MI on an FHA.
Yeah,
and being able to refinance has to do with the whole. Not only the equity, but the whole credit scheme, the whole which is out of my ballpark.
But interesting though, because he's realizing that the appraisal came in giving him $12,000 of instant equity,
right?
And typically you're looking at the days gone by we were looking at 20% equity before we could drop the MI. So a good question, but you do need to check your loan on that one. Unless he wants to refinance, as he mentioned here, into a conventional loan. So
right, and that'd be the way to go.
Yeah.
FHA is great because
FHA is an awesome program. You get in for nothing down, basically,
right.
3%. Yeah.
But as soon as you can make that conventional, you're because the MI's also gone up on FHA.
Most conventionals are done as an 80-20. So 80% loan to value, 20% down. So you start getting there, and he may need to get another bona fide appraisal because in days gone by, we could let the bank do some calculations, or they do a drive-by or that stuff.
Right.
But nowadays, they might have to get a hold of someone like you to get a bona fide appraisal done, a complete appraisal.
Right. Yeah.
So there you are. It's a little bit of a vague answer. It isn't an exact straight line for you, but roughly figure at a point when you've got 20% equity, given a current market condition, whenever that is.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's get over to Peter Brown.
Good job. I love
Yeah, after all the years of doing golf, I had to be dual everything. Chris, do we have Peter up and ready to go? Can you bring him in? We've got you. Peter Brown, it has been a long time since I've seen you, but welcome to the show. And you heard me plugging, I think, the original Aimpoint. I just wasn't smart enough to use it all the time. And it's a nice booklet in my golf bag. Tell me about Aimpoint Express.
Well,
how's that for a lead-in?
We heard that with a lot of people. They said the chart's just too much for me. And so I'd say about a year ago we changed to the Aimpoint Express, and literally it changed the way that our company works. We're teaching 6-year-olds all the way to tour pros. And really we're making it so they feel something and then they aim and then they're done. I mean, there's no more walking around in a circle. When you watch Adam Scott on TV or Hunter Mahan, you'll see them step into a spot, they stand there for a second, and then they go back to their ball and they hold up a number of fingers. And that's really it. So it's very exciting.
I think the interesting thing, Peter, is that the company Aimpoint was listening to the feedback that they were receiving from players and actually made an adjustment to it. Now, get a little more detail in the differences or the adjustments, because before we needed to have a few bits of information. We needed to know the speed of the greens, the slope or the degree of slope, the position of the ball relative to that slope. Now, are those things still need to be involved in some capacity?
Let's just do it this way. I've got about a 10-foot putt, uphill putt, that's going to break right to left. Okay. So if I walk onto the green, put us through what do we do doing Aimpoint Express?
Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to where your ball is. You're going to determine which side is the uphill or the downhill side. If we walk on the downhill side, we never walk in our line. So what we do is we walk halfway up, wherever that 10-foot putt is. We feel how much side tilt do we have, and then we're done. we've determined that number, and then we go back behind our golf ball,
That's the fingers, though, right?
and we hold up the number of fingers.
Okay.
And that is it.
So, and that's 1 through 4.
I've seen as high as a 12.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, you're holding up both hands with this slight gap in between the two of them.
I gotcha.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So
All right.
It's very, very simple.
So
Sounds
I've
too
determined that mine's a 2.
So if you determine that it's a 2, then you're going to hold up 2 fingers, and you're going to cover a portion of the hole, and then that outside edge of the second finger is going to be where your aim is going to be.
That could work. That
Yeah,
could work for
It's very easy.
a guy that can't read a green.
Now, does it matter how far your fingers are from your eyes?
What we do in a clinic is we calibrate you. So you know at the beginning of the clinic, okay, this is how far I'm going to stand. And then after the clinic, we teach you how to determine the speed of the green or how far away from your face your fingers are going to be. Because we all know that a 6-year-old's fingers are tiny compared to, I had a guy the other day that was probably 6'5", 300 pounds with big, huge fingers. Well, we have to figure out the same amount of break.
Absolutely.
So his fingers will be further away, whereas the little kid's fingers are pretty close to their face.
Which would be why you calibrate
Right.
again. So now I'm going to watch and see how far Adam Scott holds his fingers out versus Hunter Mahan kind of thing to get an idea. I mean, that would tell me something, information coming from the TV.
Oh,
So-
absolutely. It'll tell you how fast the greens are, definitely.
Yep. All right.
The closer they are to their face, the more they are.
Peter, we just brought you on, but we have to take another break. I got to get Jeff's break in,
Yep.
and so then we're going to continue on with this and moving from there. So, folks, in here right now, and you can get us on the text line for Peter as well. We're talking. We've got Peter Brown, Aimpoint Express. You can text us at 441140, or if you have another appraisal question for Jeff Hamrick, he's sitting in here and join us for the rest of the hour too. And again, 441140. This is Vince and Brett taking a break for Jeff Tarbell.
Talking money.
And we're back to Talkin' Money. And here's Jeff Tarbell.
No, here's Vince Mastracco, Brett Taylor, Jeff Hamrick from Sacramento Appraisal Group, and Peter Brown from Aimpoint Express. But first, I'm going to tell you the quiz questions. We've got one more quiz question to do today, and it's for a pair of passes to see Pablo Cruz at Hellwig Winery next weekend. So that's why Jeff wants me to get him out of here today. But first, the second quiz question that we had, which we do have a winner on, was the ticker symbol is BRK and then a suffix. How much did the A shares close yesterday? And that is Berkshire Hathaway /A. There's A and B shares. The A shares yesterday closed down $120 at a mere $206,700 a share. The B shares, just FYI, were at $138.07, $138, finishing up 12 cents. So here is the last remaining quiz question that we have, and you can do your answer off the air, and that is, what company announced this week that they were bypassing California and building a battery factory outside of Reno? 800-920-1140, 339-1140, and Chris will take your answer off the air. And once again, that's for Pablo Cruz. All right, let's move back over to Peter Brown. Let's pick up the conversation with Aimpoint. Where do we? So we have the basics now, Peter, of use your feet to sort of judge a slope. Use your fingers. You're going to calibrate fingers in a seminar, but you can get some idea from that. And you putt. Where else do we go?
What's the feedback,
Yeah.
Peter? What are you getting from your players out on tour, from amateurs that you're teaching, and what's the feedback?
I really put it this way. Before the Aimpoint Express, I tell a lot of people, I never got calls from PGA Tour players. Well, after Adam Scott started using it, that's when the phone started ringing with other players and caddies. And, they all, after they go through the class, they are absolutely amazed. One of the examples is John Wood, who's on Hunter Mahan's bag. John Wood came and took a clinic with me, and after the clinic, he calls Hunter and he says, "You got to get this clinic done like now," and that was pretty exciting. So he went and did that, and then ever since, I've been working through John Wood with Hunter. John will ask, "Hey, what can we do on this?" And Hunter will say, "Oh, that's perfect. That'll help." So it's really an amazing transformation from a product that we were struggling to get it out there to now. I mean, I got people calling all the time on the tour. And the bottom line is it's easy and it is fast.
Right.
The chart was super accurate, but it took time. So now we've melded those two things together, which is really exciting for people.
The caddy player dynamic is kind of interesting too.
Yes.
Where you obviously want the player to be involved with the Aimpoint Express, but just having a caddy involved, that's got to be helpful for their players, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And the way that John and I have talked about it is the caddy will usually come and take it first, kind of protecting or firewalling their player. So if they think, "Hey, I think my guy can do this," they immediately will get them on board. I've had, I think, 3 or 4 PGA Tour caddies that have contacted me recently, and they're saying, "Well, let's do this, and then I'll see where we go from there." And so it definitely helps to have the caddy doing it, but once the player understands it, it's lights out. At that point, they're improving pretty dramatically.
Right.
And, in terms of John Wood, I remember when he first began to caddy for Kevin Sutherland, and I've always considered John to be one of the more cerebral caddies out there, maybe because he used to be the manager of Tower Books on Broadway.
Yeah.
But he was a bookstore. He was a bookie, yeah. not a book gambler bookie, but
yeah,
he was a book where he was a bibliophile. Let's call it that. And so I think if John's doing it, and he's kind of morphed into really one of the more respected and one of the most respected and veteran caddies out there right now. So
absolutely.
So that is just good stuff. And again, I don't know what are you doing in seminars now? How long do your seminars take? We better get that going because I want to recap the whole system a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So in a seminar, it's a hour long to maybe an hour and 15 minutes long, which covers about 90% of the Aimpoint Express stuff. It's all single break. Really anywhere on the green that we don't have multiple breaks. And when I say multiple breaks, that means right to left or left to right changing, which you'd be surprised we don't have many of those. So in the hour, we go over short putts, which make up about 50% of our putting, and then we go into longer putts, which, anytime we reach the green, we want to get it close. So in that hour period, we'll go over that. We'll go over the calibration so the student can walk away from the clinic, take it right to the golf course, go play with it, and then practice it once they're done. And that's really what a clinic looks like.
I always found that the original, Peter, was just a different read, just a different way to get a read. I would tell my students all the time, do you squat behind the ball to get it and look at the line? Yeah. Well, that's a read. You're going through a process to come up with where you're going to hit your putt. This is just a different way of doing it. But that's coming from a guy too that never really implemented it himself. I always did it as when I needed help. If I had some doubt about my read, I would then go to the chart. This makes things valid. A heck of a lot easier. I would assume, and I haven't gone through it yet, and I'm looking forward to doing that, Peter, real quick. But.
I just feel like, and this is back to that thing, we get all the stuff with marketing. Oh, a tour player hits this driver and plays this ball, so we should do it. Well, yeah, that's sphere of influence marketing. But when you get to something like reading greens and you have caddies and players saying, ooh, let me in on this. Yeah. I want to improve. I think that we've got something there. And when I've seen them doing that and started looking more at this, because I'd obviously been through your original seminar going, whoa, this one's over my head.
Yeah.
And I did understand it and liked it while I was doing it with you in the seminar. It's when you put it in, you put the chart in your bag and you go for a couple weeks and then you come back and you go, okay, I got about 14 feet and I just walked the slope. And so essentially, let's review this.
Yeah.
You walk up to your putt, you size up your putt, and you thinking about your feet on the green, you try to determine slope, which gives you an idea of how much break.
Yeah. So, again, what you're doing is you're standing, if we imagine it as train tracks, so one track is going from your ball to the hole. The next track is, again, staying parallel. It's going in between your feet or where your belly button would face. So at that point, you're feeling how much tilt do you have to the side. And we can actually put a number to that feeling.
And you put a number on the feeling and then hold up your fingers. I gotta hustle you a little bit because we're down to the final couple minutes. So how do people get a hold of Brett? You're probably going that was what was going to come out of your mouth, right?
Yeah. So I hold clinics all over the place. In fact, I've got a clinic this Sunday at Ansel Hoffman, and then Brett and I had talked about setting some stuff up as well.
And we will, and anyone that wants to get a hold of me
I
is
would
happy
say maybe
to.
then the easy thing to do is get a hold of Brett Taylor at Empire Ranch. It's Brett at taylorgolf.net.
Perfect.
You prefer it
Good
that
job.
way, or do you want to put your cell phone out?
That's it. Cell phone's 916-719-5515.
Right there.
Do that too.
Or you could just call me, folks, at 220-PUTT, and I'll get you over to Brett. And then Brett will get you to Peter, and we would go from there. So, Aimpoint Express. What's the cost of a seminar? What are we talking about here?
We're looking at $100 for the hour, but it's a super deal because it's like learning how to ride a bike.
$100 to putt better, and I like to bet on a golf course too. So even dollar bets, you can make up some money on that.
Oh yeah,
Good one. Jeez Louise.
Hey, I'm the highest handicapper I know that likes to bet.
Yeah, nickels.
All you got to do is sink a couple more of those 20-footer putts, and man, you're going to make your money back.
Exactly right, Peter.
And so, all right, Peter, thank you very much for joining us today. And really, it's good for business on the golf course, folks. So, all right, I'm going to bump over to Jeff. I've got an agent question for you.
Okay.
I'm an agent, and I'm worried about my house not appraising that I got offers on or an offer on. Is it a good idea for the agent to meet the appraiser at the house and give them their comps? Hear that music?
That's a loaded one. Yeah, I would say that yes, and be very gentle.
That's how. Okay, that is
because some
how
appraisers
I
are a little bit reluctant,
a little touchy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's very good judgment from there, folks. This has been a blast. Hope you enjoyed listening to us. Again, I thank Jeff Tarbell and John Foderaro for taking the Saturday off. Brett Taylor, it is always a pleasure to get with you on the radio and otherwise. Miss you, buddy. And Jeff, thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Again, it's SacramentoAppraisalGroup.net, divorce appraisals, estate appraisals, bankruptcies, pre-listing appraisals. We didn't even get to that. Next time.